Racist waitress spits in black family's food. Not knowing they own the restaurant chain, a shocking display of disrespect enrages a family. But their next move will teach the waitress a hard lesson about appearances. And if you cherish your family and love stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and avoid 10 years of bad luck. The Southern Comfort restaurant bustled with its usual evening crowd, the clinking of glasses and murmur of conversations filling the air. Lisa Manning, a waitress of 5 years, stood at her station, her face contorting into an unmistakable sneer as she watched the Johnson family enter through the front doors. The family of 4, well-dressed, composed, and radiating warmth, made their way to table 15 in her section. Lisa's fingers tightened around her notepad. She'd been working double shifts all week, and now this family had to be seated in her section. The restaurant's soft lighting and rustic decor created an inviting atmosphere for most, but Lisa's presence cast an invisible shadow over table 15. The Johnson family settled into their seats. Marcus, the son, pulled out a chair for his mother, while his sister Mia adjusted her napkin with practiced elegance. Their father, wearing a tailored business suit, studied the menu with interest. They looked like any other family enjoying a night out, but Lisa saw them differently. Her prejudices, deeply rooted and never challenged, colored every observation she made. From her position near the service station, Lisa observed their interaction with barely concealed contempt. The family shared stories and laughed together, their joy genuine and infectious. Marcus, wearing a university sweatshirt, gestured animatedly as he told a story about his campus experience. Mia, dressed in professional attire, checked her phone occasionally but remained engaged in the family conversation. Their mother beamed with pride at her children's achievements, while their father offered thoughtful comments between bites of bread. The normalcy of their family dinner seemed to aggravate Lisa even more. She approached the table with a forced smile, mechanically taking their orders. Mr. Johnson ordered the house specialty, a slow-cooked brisket. Mrs. Johnson chose the grilled salmon. Marcus and Mia both opted for the restaurant's famous Southern fried chicken. In the kitchen, Lisa's movements were sharp and aggressive as she collected their orders. The chef noticed her attitude, but said nothing, used to her moods. When the food arrived at the service window, Lisa stood there for a moment, her internal struggle visible on her face. Then, in a moment of hateful impulse, she did the unthinkable. Looking around to ensure no one was watching, she leaned over Mr. Johnson's brisket and spat on it, quickly wiping away the evidence with a napkin. The act took less than 5 seconds, but its implications would echo far beyond that moment. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she arranged the plates on her tray, a mix of adrenaline and something else, perhaps the first stirrings of shame, coursing through her body. She straightened her apron, lifted the tray, and headed back to table 15. The Johnsons remained engaged in their conversation as she placed their meals before them. Mr. Johnson thanked her politely, unaware of the violation his food had just endured. Mia and Marcus continued their animated discussion about Marcus's upcoming graduation. Mrs. Johnson arranged her napkin in her lap, smiling at her children's enthusiasm. Lisa walked away, her face flushed. From the corner of her eye, she saw Mr. Johnson take his first bite of the contaminated meal. The restaurant continued its normal evening service, other diners enjoying their meals, servers moving efficiently between tables. But at table 15, an invisible line had been crossed, a boundary of human decency shattered by a single act of prejudice. None of them knew yet. Not Lisa, not the Johnsons, not the other diners. This moment would trigger a chain of events that would transform not just their lives, but the entire community. The security camera in the corner of the kitchen, quietly recording everything, would later reveal Lisa's actions to the world. The Johnson family left Southern Comfort shortly after 9 p.m., their expressions a mix of confusion and growing anger. They gathered in the parking lot beside their black Mercedes SUV, the restaurant's neon sign casting an eerie glow over their faces as they processed what had just happened. "Did you see how she looked at us?" Marcus asked, his university sweatshirt now zipped up against the evening chill. He paced back and forth, unable to contain his frustration. "And I swear something was off about Dad's food. The way she acted when she brought it out, she couldn't even look us in the eye. Mia stood with her arms crossed, her professional demeanor from dinner replaced by cold fury. She'd noticed things the others hadn't. The way Lisa had hesitated before bringing their food, her rushed departure after serving them, the subtle smirk when she thought no one was looking. Years of corporate experience had taught Mia to read people, and everything about their waitress had set off alarm bells. "We need to do something," Mia declared, pulling out her phone. "This isn't just about us anymore. How many other families has she done this to? How many more will she target if we stay quiet?" Her fingers moved rapidly across the screen as she began documenting their experience. Their mother, Diana Johnson, placed a steadying hand on her husband Robert's arm. They'd been through similar situations before, subtle discrimination, not so subtle slights, but this felt different. More personal, more deliberate. Robert Johnson had built their restaurant empire from nothing, turning a single-family recipe into a nationwide chain. Now, to be disrespected in someone else's establishment struck a particularly bitter chord. "We could file a complaint," Diana suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. They all knew how these complaints typically ended. Buried under paperwork, dismissed with half-hearted apologies, forgotten by everyone except those who experienced them. Marcus, who'd been building a following on social media through his activism work, suddenly stopped pacing. "A complaint won't be enough," he said, his expression shifting from anger to determination. "We need to make this public. Show people what's really happening in places like this. Make it impossible to ignore." Mia nodded, already formulating a strategy. Her corporate PR experience could be valuable here. "We need to be smart about this," she cautioned. "It's not just about exposing one racist waitress. It's about starting a conversation about the everyday racism people face, especially in spaces where they're just trying to exist normally." The family huddled closer together as a cool breeze swept through the parking lot. Other diners walked past them to their cars, oblivious to the significant moment unfolding. The Johnsons had faced discrimination before, but this time felt different. This time, they had the platform, the resources, and the determination to do something meaningful. "We'll start with social media," Marcus suggested, already drafting a post in his head. "But we need to think bigger. This could be the beginning of a real campaign. Something that goes beyond just calling out bad behavior. Something that actually drives change." Robert Johnson finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of years of similar experiences. "Whatever we do, we need to do it right. This isn't about revenge. It's about education, about making sure other families don't have to go through this." They spent another 30 minutes in that parking lot, outlining their approach. Mia suggested reaching out to her media contacts. Marcus began planning a social media strategy. Diana started thinking about community outreach programs they could incorporate into their own restaurants. By the time they finally got into their car, the initial shock and anger had transformed into purposeful determination. They didn't know it yet, but their response to this incident would spark a movement that would extend far beyond Southern Comfort's parking lot. The Johnson family living room transformed into a makeshift command center the following evening. Mia and Marcus had invited their closest friends and allies, social media influencers, community activists, and marketing experts, to help craft their response. Laptops covered the coffee table, and whiteboards filled with strategies lined the walls. Jasmine, Marcus's girlfriend and a digital content creator, set up professional lighting and camera equipment. "We need to make this video raw but polished," she explained, adjusting the settings. "Something that looks authentic but can't be dismissed as amateur outrage." Around the room, different groups focused on specific aspects of the campaign. Andre, a civil rights lawyer and family friend, reviewed local discrimination laws while discussing potential legal angles with Robert. In the corner, Mia collaborated with her PR team from Johnson Restaurants, ensuring their approach wouldn't backfire or seem exploitative. "The key is to make this bigger than just one incident," Mia emphasized, reviewing talking points. "We need to show how this connects to a broader pattern." She pulled up statistics about discrimination in service industries on her laptop, building a factual foundation for their message. Marcus sat with his social media team, mapping out hashtags and identifying key influencers to amplify their message. "We're not just calling out Southern Comfort," he insisted. We're starting a conversation about everyday racism that people can't ignore. The atmosphere grew more focused as they prepared to record. Diana Johnson stepped in front of the camera first, her natural dignity adding weight to her words as she described watching her husband being disrespected. Robert followed, sharing not just the restaurant incident, but a lifetime of similar experiences. Mia spoke about corporate responsibility and the importance of proper training and accountability. Marcus addressed younger viewers directly, challenging them to recognize and confront casual racism in their daily lives. Each family member brought a different perspective, creating a comprehensive narrative that would resonate with various audiences. Between takes, they discussed comment moderation strategies and prepared responses to potential backlash. "We need to be ready for trolls," Jasmine warned, showing examples from similar campaigns. "But we can't let them derail the message." The editing process took hours. They carefully balanced emotional impact with factual presentation, ensuring the video couldn't be dismissed as mere outrage content. They included statistics, expert commentary, and calls to action that went beyond simple social media engagement. "We need to give people something concrete to do," Mia insisted during the final edit. They added links to anti-racism resources, information about implicit bias training, and ways to report discrimination in service industries. By midnight, the video was ready. It opened with the Johnson family sitting together, their presence both powerful and approachable. Through careful editing, their story unfolded naturally, building from the specific incident at Southern Comfort to a broader discussion of systemic racism. The team gathered around Mia's laptop for the final review. The video ran just under 7 minutes, long enough to tell their story properly, but short enough to maintain viewer attention. They had included security camera footage from the restaurant's kitchen, obtained through their contacts, showing Lisa's deliberate act of contaminating the food. "This is going to make waves," Andre predicted, reviewing the final cut. "Are you ready for what comes next?" The Johns, on family, exchanged looks. They knew this was just the beginning. The video would launch the next morning, carefully timed to catch the early social media crowd. Their PR team had press releases ready, and community organizations were prepared to share and support their message. As their friends packed up equipment and headed home, the Johnsons sat together in their living room, the quiet replacing the earlier buzz of activity. The video was uploaded and scheduled, their strategy was in place, and there was no turning back. Lisa Morgan sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, scrolling through her phone with trembling hands. The Johnson family's video had exploded across social media, and she recognized herself in the security footage. Her stomach churned as she watched herself commit the act that was now exposed to the world. The video had already garnered millions of views, with comments flooding in from across the country. The sound of knocking interrupted her spiral of panic. Jessica Washington, her friend of 10 years, stood at the door. Unlike their usual casual visits, Jessica's expression carried a weight that Lisa had never seen before. "We need to talk," Jessica said, walking past Lisa into the apartment. "It's not what it looks like," Lisa started, but the words felt hollow even to her. Jessica turned to face her, arms crossed, the distance between them suddenly feeling like miles despite their decade-long friendship. "Then what is it, Lisa?" "Because what it looks like is my best friend spitting in someone's food because they're black." Jessica's voice remained steady, but her eyes reflected years of unspoken pain. "Do you do that when I eat at your table too?" Lisa sank onto her couch, defensive arguments rising automatically. "You're different, Jess. You're not like..." "Not like what?" Jessica cut her off. "Not like those other black people? Do you have any idea how that sounds?" She pulled out her phone, playing the Johnson video again. "Look at them, Lisa. Really look at them. That could be my family. That could be me." The video continued playing, showing the Johnson children sharing their experiences with racism. Lisa tried to look away, but Jessica moved closer, making her watch. "Remember last year when I told you about being followed around in stores? You said I was being paranoid. Remember when I didn't get that promotion and you said I was playing the race card?" Tears began forming in Lisa's eyes, but Jessica wasn't finished. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a small scar on her forearm. "When I was 12, a waitress accidentally spilled hot coffee on me after my family complained about slow service. My mother knew it wasn't an accident, but she smiled and said it was okay because she didn't want to cause trouble. The weight of Jessica's words hung in the air. Lisa's usual defenses began crumbling as she saw her friend. Really saw her, perhaps for the first time. The pain in Jessica's voice, the years of accumulated hurt, the constant need to be one of the good ones to maintain their friendship. It all came crashing down. I didn't. Lisa started, but Jessica interrupted again. You did. And you need to own that. Jessica's voice softened slightly. I've stayed friends with you because I always thought you could be better than this. I've watched you be kind, be generous, be loving. But I've also watched you compartmentalize that kindness, deciding who deserves it based on nothing but skin color. Lisa's phone continued buzzing with notifications. People had recognized her from the video, and messages were pouring in. Her workplace had already called twice, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. What am I supposed to do? Lisa asked, her voice small. Jessica stood up, gathering her things. That's not for me to tell you. I've spent years trying to help you see, trying to guide you gently. But this time, you need to figure it out yourself. She paused at the door. The question is, why? Are you more upset about being caught, or about finally seeing who you really are? The door closed behind Jessica, leaving Lisa alone with her thoughts and the continuing buzz of her phone. On the screen, the Johnson family's video played on loop, their dignified response to her hateful action making her feel smaller with each viewing. The community center's main hall buzzed with anticipation as people filed in for the Johnson family's organized discussion on racism and inclusion. Local news vans lined the street outside, and social media live streams were being set up throughout the venue. The Johnson family's campaign had exploded beyond their initial expectations, turning their personal experience into a national conversation. Mia Johnson stood at the podium, reviewing her opening remarks while Marcus coordinated with security. Their video had garnered over 5 million views in just 3 days, spawning countless reaction videos, opinion pieces, and heated debates across all platforms. Hashtag Southern Discomfort had become a trending topic, with people sharing their own experiences of discrimination in restaurants and service industries. We've got confirmation from 4 major news networks. Robert Johnson informed his family, checking his tablet. The Southern Comfort incident has become a catalyst for a larger discussion about institutional racism. Diana squeezed his hand, both proud and concerned about the magnitude of what they'd started. The hall quickly filled to capacity. Community leaders, activists, restaurant industry representatives, and concerned citizens occupied every available seat. Among them sat Lisa, attempting to make herself invisible in the back row. She hadn't planned to come, but Jessica's words had haunted her for days, pushing her toward this moment. Mia approached the microphone, her corporate experience evident in her composed demeanor. We're not here to shame individuals, she began, her voice steady. We're here to address a system that allows prejudice to flourish unchecked. The crowd fell silent, hanging on her words. Marcus followed with a presentation of data they'd collected since posting their video. Hundreds of people had come forward with similar stories, creating a damning pattern of discriminatory behavior across the service industry. Restaurant workers had submitted anonymous testimonies about witnessed racism, revealing a culture of silent compliance. Community leaders took turns sharing perspectives. A local restaurant owner discussed implementing mandatory sensitivity training. A civil rights attorney outlined legal protections and their limitations. Each speaker added another layer to the conversation, moving it beyond the viral video to address systemic issues. During the audience participation segment, people lined up at the microphones to share their experiences. A young waitress described witnessing similar incidents but feeling powerless to speak up. An elderly man recounted decades of subtle discrimination he'd faced while dining out. Each story added weight to the Johnson family's message. Lisa sat rigid in her chair, each testimony hitting her like a physical blow. The faces in the crowd, the stories they shared, they were destroying every justification she'd built around her actions. She noticed some people in the audience recognizing her from the video, their whispers and glances making her simultaneously want to flee and stay rooted to her spot. The event reached its crescendo when Diana Johnson took the stage. Unlike the polished presentations before her, she spoke from the heart. This isn't about one incident or one person, she declared. It's about acknowledging that these small acts of hatred chip away at human dignity, day after day, year after year. As Diana spoke, Lisa found herself moving forward in her seat, tears streaming down her face. The weight of her actions, magnified by each speaker's words, pressed down on her consciousness. She saw her reflection in pain of each story, recognized her prejudices in the systemic issues being discussed. The event concluded with the announcement of a new initiative, the Johnson Foundation for Workplace Equality. The family pledged to use their resources and platform to promote inclusive practices in the service industry, offer training programs, and provide legal support for discrimination cases. The community center had begun to empty after the main event, but smaller groups lingered, engaged in intense discussions. Lisa stood in a quiet corner, gathering courage for what she knew she needed to do. Across the room, Mia Johnson was collecting her materials from the podium, and Lisa forced herself to move forward. "Ms. Johnson?" Lisa's voice quavered. Mia turned, recognition immediately flashing across her face. The space between them crackled with tension as other attendees began to notice the encounter, conversations dying down as people watched the interaction unfold. "I'm Lisa Morgan. I'm the waitress who—" Lisa's voice caught, but Mia's expression remained neutral, professional. "I'm the one who contaminated your father's food." Mia set down her papers, giving Lisa her full attention. The silence in their corner of the room grew heavier. "Yes, I know who you are," Mia replied, her voice controlled but not hostile. "Why are you here?" "I've been watching everything. The video, the responses, this event." Lisa struggled to maintain eye contact. "I thought I understood. I thought I knew." She stopped, took a deep breath. "I was wrong. About everything." Mia studied Lisa's face carefully before speaking. "Do you know what hurt the most?" she asked. It wasn't just the act itself. It was the casualness of it. Like it was normal, routine. Her words carried years of similar experiences, countless moments of being made to feel less than human. Lisa felt the tears coming again, but forced herself to stay present. "I never thought about it that way. I never thought about a lot of things until Jessica, my friend, she made me see." She wiped her eyes. "She showed me her scar from when she was 12. We all have scars," Mia interrupted. "Some are visible, some aren't. Every time something like this happens, it leaves a mark." She gestured to the now empty hall. "That's why we're doing this. Not just because of you, but because of all the Lisas out there who think their actions exist in isolation." Jessica, who had been watching from nearby, approached the pair. She stood beside Lisa, but maintained enough distance to make it clear she was there as an observer, not a shield. The three women formed a triangle of tension and possibility. "I've been trying to help Lisa understand for years," Jessica explained to Mia. "Sometimes it takes a dramatic wake-up call for people to really see themselves." Mia nodded, then turned back to Lisa. "Understanding isn't enough. What are you going to do with this awareness?" Lisa straightened her shoulders slightly. "I want change. I want to help others change too. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to be part of the solution." "That's a start," Mia acknowledged. "But change isn't just about good intentions. It's about consistent action, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable." The conversation continued as other attendees drifted away. Lisa shared her background, her ingrained prejudices, her moments of realization over the past few days. Mia listened, occasionally challenging assumptions or pointing out blind spots. Jessica added context from her years of friendship with Lisa, highlighting both the problems and the potential for growth. As their discussion wound down, Mia handed Lisa a business card. "We're starting a training program for service industry workers. If you're serious about change, show up next Tuesday. Actions speak louder than words." The Johnson family's campaign gained momentum over the following weeks, transforming from a viral video into a full-fledged movement. Local news stations ran special reports on discrimination in the service industry, while national media outlets picked up the story of how one family's experience sparked widespread change. Marcus's social media following exploded as he continued sharing updates and resources. The hashtag Service for All joined hashtag Southern Discomfort, creating a platform for both workers and customers to discuss their experiences. His daily live streams featured experts discussing implicit bias, industry veterans sharing insights, and regular people telling their stories. Meanwhile, Lisa found herself on an unexpected journey of transformation. She attended the Johnson Foundation's first training session, arriving early and sitting in the back. The room filled with restaurant workers, managers, and owners, all there to learn. Some recognized her from the video, but instead of the condemnation she expected, she found others willing to examine their own biases. "I never thought I'd be here," Lisa admitted during a group discussion. Her voice shook, but grew stronger as she continued. "I used to think I wasn't racist because I had black friends, because I could be nice to black customers. But I was carrying these toxic beliefs I didn't even recognize." The training sessions covered various topics: implicit bias, microaggressions, cultural sensitivity, and practical strategies for creating inclusive environments. Lisa absorbed everything, often staying late to ask questions or discuss concepts she found challenging. One evening, after a particularly intense session, Mia approached Lisa. "We're planning to record some educational content," she said. "Would you be willing to share your story? Not as a villain, but as someone who's actively working to change." Lisa hesitated, aware of the potential backlash. "Won't that just make people angry? Seeing me again?" "Maybe," Mia acknowledged. "But change isn't just about calling out wrong behavior. It's about showing that growth is possible. Your story could reach others who need to confront their own biases." After careful consideration, Lisa agreed. The video team set up in the training center, creating a simple, honest portrayal of her journey. She spoke about her upbringing, her unexamined prejudices, and the wake-up call that forced her to confront her actions. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she stated clearly in the video. "What I did was inexcusable, but I am asking people like me, people carrying these harmful beliefs, to stop and really look at themselves. The pain we cause is real, and it ripples out far beyond the moment." The video included interviews with Jessica, who spoke about the complexity of their friendship and the importance of holding loved ones accountable. Mia provided context about the broader impact of discriminatory behavior in the service industry. The final cut presented a nuanced look at both personal and systemic change. When the video went live, reactions were mixed. Some praised Lisa's honesty and willingness to change, while others argued she didn't deserve a platform. The conversation it sparked, however, went beyond individual actions to address deeper societal issues. Marcus organized online discussions about the video, moderating conversations between supporters and critics. The Johnson Foundation used it as a teaching tool in their training programs. Other restaurants and service industries reached out, requesting similar training for their staff. Lisa continued attending sessions, gradually moving from participant to helper. She started assisting with role-playing exercises, using her experience to help others recognize and address their biases. Her presence served as a constant reminder that change, while difficult, was possible. The Johnson Foundation organized a Unity in Service celebration 3 months after the initial incident. The event, held in the city's largest convention center, aimed to showcase the progress made while acknowledging "Your work's still ahead." Banners promoting diversity and inclusion hung from the ceiling, and interactive exhibits demonstrated the impact of both positive and negative interactions in service environments. Lisa's participation in the event became a point of controversy during the planning stages. Some board members worried her presence might overshadow the foundation's message, while others argued it was essential to show real transformation. The debate spread to social media, where opinions split between those supporting redemption and those demanding permanent consequences. "We're not celebrating Lisa," Mia explained during a planning meeting. "We're acknowledging that real change requires both accountability and opportunity for growth." The foundation ultimately decided to include Lisa's story as one component of a larger narrative about institutional change. The day of the celebration arrived with unprecedented attendance. Restaurant owners, service industry workers, community leaders, and concerned citizens filled the convention center. News crews set up their equipment, while social media influencers prepared to live stream the proceedings. Robert Johnson opened the event with a powerful speech about transformation. "When we posted that video, we wanted justice," he acknowledged. "What we found instead was an opportunity to create lasting change." He outlined the foundation's achievements. 25 restaurants had completed their training program. 3 major chains had adopted their inclusion policies, and reported incidents of discrimination had decreased significantly in participating establishments. The atmosphere grew tense when Lisa took the stage. Some audience members stood and turned their backs in protest. Others listened intently as she shared her ongoing journey of confronting ingrained prejudices. "I stand before you not as someone who has completed this journey, but as someone still walking it," Lisa began. Her voice trembled but remained clear. "Every day, I discover new layers of bias I need to address. Every day, I choose to face these uncomfortable truths rather than hide from them." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A young waitress stood up during the Q&A session. "How do we know you're not just saying what people want to hear?" she challenged. "How can we trust your change is real?" Lisa paused before responding. "You're right to question my sincerity," she admitted. "Words alone mean nothing. That's why I'm here today. Not to ask for trust, but to show through consistent actions that change is possible." The audience's reaction remained divided. Some applauded her honesty, while others maintained their skepticism. The tension reflected broader societal debates about redemption, accountability, and the possibility of genuine transformation. Marcus moderated a panel discussion featuring restaurant owners who had implemented the foundation's training programs. They shared data showing improved customer satisfaction, decreased complaints, and more diverse hiring practices. Their success stories provided concrete evidence that institutional change was possible when approached systematically. As the event continued, smaller group discussions formed throughout the venue. People shared experiences, debated approaches, and formed connections across traditional boundaries. The Foundation's message of unity in service began to take tangible form in these spontaneous interactions. The celebration concluded with the announcement of new initiatives: a scholarship program for minority students entering the hospitality industry, a certification program for inclusive business practices, and expanded training resources for service establishments nationwide. The aftermath of the Unity in Service celebration brought unexpected consequences, particularly for Southern Comfort Restaurant. The establishment, already struggling with negative publicity from the initial incident, faced mounting pressure as protesters gather daily outside its doors. Social media campaigns called for boycotts, and regular customers began choosing other dining options. Inside the restaurant, tension among staff members reached a breaking point. Some employees, inspired by the Johnson Foundation's message, began speaking out about past incidents they'd witnessed. Others defended the status quo, creating a divided workplace atmosphere. The restaurant's management called an emergency meeting to address the situation. "We need to get ahead of this," the owner declared, scanning the faces of his nervous staff. "The numbers don't lie. We're down 60% in revenue since the incident." Lisa sat silently in the back of the room, already aware of what was coming. The human resources manager stepped forward, holding a manila envelope. "Ms. Morgan, in light of recent events and their impact on our business, we're terminating your employment effectively immediately." The announcement sparked immediate debate among the staff. While some nodded in agreement, others questioned the timing. "So now you care about discrimination?" One server challenged management. Where was this concern before the video went viral? As Lisa cleaned out her locker, a younger colleague approached her. "They're just making you the scapegoat," she whispered. "Everyone knows Tony, the floor manager, has been saying racist stuff for years. Management never did anything about it." This revelation led to further investigation by local activists. Former employees came forward with stories about Tony's discriminatory practices, denying certain sections to minority servers, making inappropriate comments, and influencing hiring decisions based on race. The pressure intensified when these new allegations surfaced. Local news stations ran follow-up stories, interviewing former staff members about the restaurant's culture of normalized discrimination. The Johnson Foundation received multiple submissions through their reporting system, all pointing to a pattern of behavioral issues at Southern Comfort. Management's attempt to contain the situation by firing Lisa backfired spectacularly. Rather than closing the book on the incident, her dismissal opened new chapters of scrutiny. Employee testimonies painted a picture of systemic issues that went far beyond one person's actions. Tony, the floor manager, initially denied all allegations. "This is a witch hunt," he declared to reporters. "They're just jumping on the bandwagon." However, security footage and documented complaints soon emerged, supporting the employee's claims. The restaurant's owner faced a difficult decision. Public pressure mounted for more significant action, while longtime staff members threatened to quit if Tony was dismissed. The situation reached a breaking point when a prominent food critic published a scathing article about the restaurant's toxic culture. Finally, after a week of intense scrutiny, Southern Comfort announced Tony's termination. The press release cited multiple violations of company policy and failure to maintain a respectful work environment. The restaurant also pledged to undergo complete staff retraining and implement new anti-discrimination policies. The local community's reaction to these developments was mixed. Some saw the firings as necessary steps toward accountability, while others questioned whether removing individuals addressed the underlying cultural issues. Debates raged on social media about whether the restaurant deserved a chance at redemption or should face permanent consequences for fostering a discriminatory environment. 6 months after the initial incident, the landscape of Southern Comfort's parking lot had transformed. Where protest signs once stood, banners now announced the restaurant's reopening under new management. The Johnson Restaurant Group had purchased the struggling establishment, turning a symbol of discrimination into a beacon of change. The transition wasn't just symbolic. The Johnson family had completely renovated the space, creating an environment that celebrated diversity through its artwork, menu, and staff. The kitchen now featured recipes from various cultural traditions, while the walls displayed photographs documenting the community's journey toward unity. Lisa, who had spent months volunteering with the Johnson Foundation's training programs, now worked as an assistant coordinator for their educational initiatives. Her role involved sharing her story with other establishments and helping implement anti-discrimination policies. The irony of her transformation from antagonist to advocate wasn't lost on anyone, but it served as a powerful testament to the possibility of change. During the restaurant's reopening ceremony, Mia Johnson addressed the gathered crowd. "This isn't about erasing history," she declared. "It's about learning from it and creating something better." The event attracted national media attention, with reporters eager to document this unique approach to addressing systemic racism. The celebration was briefly interrupted when news broke about Tony, the former manager. After his dismissal, he had attempted to open his own restaurant in a neighboring town, but his history of discrimination had followed him. Investors pulled out when they discovered his connection to the Southern Comfort incident, and his business plans collapsed before they began. This development sparked fresh discussions about consequences and redemption. While Tony had faced professional repercussions for his actions, Lisa had found a path forward through acknowledgement and active change. The contrast between their stories became a case study in the Johnson Foundation's training materials. Marcus organized a special segment for his social media channels, documenting the restaurant's transformation. He interviewed new staff members, including several former employees who had spoken out against discrimination. Their stories of returning to work in a reformed environment resonated with viewers nationwide. The Johnson family's approach to running Southern Comfort became a model for other establishments. They implemented transparent hiring practices, regular sensitivity training, and clear protocols for reporting discrimination. Customer feedback cards now included specific questions about inclusivity and respect. During a quiet moment on opening night, Lisa found herself serving the Johnson family again, this time as part of the Foundation's team, not as their waitress. The symmetry of the moment struck everyone at the table. "Sometimes," Robert Johnson observed, "the worst moments in our lives can lead to the most meaningful changes." The story of Southern Comfort's transformation continued to ripple outward. Other restaurants sought guidance from the Johnson Foundation, leading to a nationwide certification program for inclusive business practices. The Foundation's training materials, featuring both Lisa's and Tony's stories, became standard resources in hospitality management courses. As the evening wound down, Diana Johnson gathered the staff for a final word. "What happened here 6 months ago was painful," she acknowledged. "But look at what we've built from that pain. Look at how many lives we've touched, how many minds we've opened, how many hearts we've changed." The renamed establishment, now called Common Ground, became more than just a restaurant. It became a testament to the possibility of transformation, both personal and institutional. The Johnson family had turned an act of hate into a movement of hope, proving that even the darkest moments could spark meaningful change.